Here we are. I took a week off last week. It's the first sermon that I haven't preached in like months at a time, and I'm telling you, it's the weirdest thing. It built up. That's good news and bad news because I might preach a few sermons all at once this week. We are Shiloh Ranch for you guys that are jumping on, joining us. If you're jumping in online, if you're here in person, you already know who we are. But let me tell you who we are, even if you're here, in case you've forgotten. We are a gathering of people, and when we say a gathering of people, that can mean a whole lot of different things. We might mean that it's the gathering of people in Powell, Butte. We might mean that it's the gathering of people in Arizona, people in their homes, people on their couches, people that are hopefully not driving. We are a gathering. We are this core group of people that have said that it's our mission, it's our goal to go to the Word, and from the Word, we want to create a simple path to Jesus. And if we can create a simple path to Jesus and just sort of work through the distractions, I'm a perfect candidate, actually, to lead this church because I'm a preacher's kid, and preacher's kids are historically the most cynical people on the planet about things related to church, and I think that maybe I'm no different. But what that means is let's skip all the things. Let's just skip the things that are sort of window dressing. Let's see if we can simplify who Jesus is and what the Word says. Because if you get a glimpse of Jesus based on who the Word tells us that He is, if you begin to start to ingest the gospel and you start to have this relational experience with Jesus and it begins to make sense, it's anything but simple. The simple thing we want to do is guide you. There's Jesus. There He is. There's what He says. This is what He does. From there, that's where it gets complicated. Here's why. Because Jesus, what we believe the Word teaches us is that Jesus is not passive. He doesn't just go, hey, and keep going. He goes, let's go. Let's get to work. And it changes everything. I love the stories. My favorite thing as a pastor is stories of people who go, I wasn't expecting that it would change this much. I didn't know that Jesus had all this up his sleeve. We've been in a series since May about the fruits of the Spirit, and the fruits of the Spirit are things that as we begin to engage with Jesus, as we begin to interface with Jesus in the Word at a personal level through prayer, as we begin to be engaged by Jesus, there are things that our life begins to produce, naturally begins to produce, and that in Galatians it walks through those. I was laying in bed last night, and I thought to myself, if I'm being honest, I feel like I have something I need to get off my chest, if you guys just don't mind. And since I know that you're not in the building personally right now, I can say whatever I want. I have to get this off my chest, is that I haven't done this in a long time, is I have this recurring nightmare. And this recurring nightmare is that I'm standing in front of a group of people, and I'm getting ready to preach, and I look down at my computer, and the computer screen is blank, and I don't know what I'm going to preach about. So I'm laying in bed last night, and I'm like, man, I got to get my sermon done tomorrow. It was 11:30, and I had this moment where I'm like, it's Wednesday. The sermon is tomorrow. This is not good information to be hearing from your pastor, but it's typical if I can get it off my chest. I'd played Monopoly with the kids. I was watching a conspiracy theory about Epstein Island. I had time. I could have done it. I just didn't. I lost track of my days. So keep in mind, when I say that, put my sermon together, I know what I'm preaching about at a general sense, but I need time to set aside and put it in sermon form, points where I can talk my way through it, where hopefully it makes sense, because when it's in my head, as you could probably imagine, it's just sort of all over the place. And I want to make sure that when you come to church, that I have honored your time and your commitment, whether you're watching it, whether you're here in person. I want to honor the commitment to make sure that it's palatable and at least somewhat understandable. And why am I telling you all this? Here's why. Because I had it up here, but I hadn't put it in here. See, I had believed it. I hadn't acted on it. This will make sense in a minute. Fruit of the Spirit. Here they are. Ready? Galatians 5:22, but the fruit of the Spirit, things that Jesus produces in our lives, that it's a supernatural result, is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness. And you're like, yep, what's the next one? Ready for this? 7. Number 7 on the list. The seventh fruit listed, faithfulness. We are at faithfulness this week, and the Greek, don't think that that's impressive. You can Google anything in the Bible, and it'll tell you the Greek meaning. But the Greek, I hear sometimes people are like, well, if you studied it in the Greek, and I'm like, you Googled it. You can be honest. It's a word that is P-I-S-T-I-S, pistis. It is the character of one who can be relied on. That's the basic concept, is that as Christ followers, what He will do is He will produce in us the ability to be trustworthy. We are trustworthy people. We are people who can be depended on. Now, if you've been following along, you can go back the last several weeks. I mean, this is week 7. If you've been following along to this point, it's been this thing that God does in his followers and his children, the things that he produces. But I'm going to tell you, in week 7, of course, because the Bible, it always uses the number 7. Of course, it's week 7 where it all changes. The concept, it feels like it takes a shift. Instead of God producing in you, it says that faithfulness it's a combination. It's a combination not of what God produces in you, but also your responsibility in that. It's not like you're passively just enjoying all these additions from God. Faithfulness says that it's the acting upon what you say that you believe. This is not just God miraculously doing something as you passively watch. You cannot have faithfulness, ready for this? Week 7, fruit of the Spirit, and everything we've talked about so far is things that God produces in you. But, week 7, you cannot have faithfulness without a combined choice and action. So if you're sitting here in church and you're like, this is a good sermon, this feels good. Wait a minute, this is probably going to be your least favorite sermon that I've ever preached, possibly. Because it says that you cannot say that you have faithfulness if there's not a choice and an action. That's what faithfulness is. James chapter 2 says it this way. What does it profit, my brethren, if someone says that he has faith? That's the same, in the Greek, what that word is. It's the same word in Greek. Someone says he has faith but does not have works. Can faith save him? Verse 15, if a brother or sister is naked or destitute of daily food, and one of you says to them, depart in peace, be warmed and filled, but you do not give them the things which are needed for the body, what does that profit? What does it profit? The Bible is discussing its felt need. It's saying that there's this felt need, and when someone comes with a felt need, you saying something nice to them passively, like, yeah, God bless you, brother, all the things that we do. He's going, that's not any good. Verse 17, this is where I think that this week will start to make sense. Verse 17, thus also. So it's saying just like that if I come to you and I go, I'm hungry, and you tell me something nice, I'm still hungry. Nothing has changed. Nothing has happened. If I come to you with a need and nobody acts upon that need, you or I, the need doesn't go away. We come to God for salvation, and it says this, faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. Now, I've heard this preached by smart people who go, if you don't act on your faith, it's dead. God will not honor it. No, that's not what it's saying here. What the Bible is teaching us right here is this, it says that if you say that you have faith and it doesn't compel you to actions, then whatever you had in the beginning was something. Maybe it was a feeling, maybe it was an emotion, but it was not faith, because faith in its truest sense, compels us or draws us into action. Like they say the demonstration of this, if you want to in your head start to see this, is if we were to intellectually stand around talking about chairs this, chairs that, we love chairs, we love armrests, we love little drink holders, we love chairs. Well, that's great, but that's just intellectual. That faithfulness, the act of pistis is when you sit in the chair. When you act on what you say that you believe, what you're doing is you are operating in your faithfulness. Okay, so let's see if we can make sense of it. Faith with no action proves itself to be false. So here's why I said you may not like this sermon, is that we can no longer think of the fruits of the Spirit as systematic. And that systematic, that's a word that we're hearing a lot right now. I know in the streets, everybody's talking about systematic this and systematic that. We can no longer think of the fruits as being systematic only, having been accomplished by Jesus, given to you freely, and apart from your choosing. If you're thinking of the fruits of the Spirit, you can no longer think of them as being systematic. Maybe the first 6, you could argue that God does all these things in us, but God throws us a very direct, very clear concept when he says faithfulness. Faithfulness. Luke chapter 22. Anytime you get late into the Gospels, you know it's going to be serious. If you're ever reading Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and you're getting towards the end, you know that things are kind of ramping up. It's just the nature of the Gospels. In verse 39, it says, and he came out and proceeded, as was his custom, to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples also followed him. What you have here is you have Jesus on a mission, and the disciples not understanding, maybe sensing that something was happening, but not sure what it was. It was like Jesus was always kind of sort of confusing him and teaching him, and so it's just one of those moments. When he arrived at the place, he said to them, pray that you may not enter into temptation. he gave them a word. Yes. Do you believe this? Yes, Jesus. You come to church. Do you believe? Yes. Oh, yes. I'm going to tell you what. The American church is good at a lot of things. We do really well at a lot of things. Faithfulness is not our strength. Faithfulness is not something that I would say that we could really chalk up as an A+. It's like the grade on the report card that you try to doctor before your parents see it. Pray that you may not enter into temptation. Verse 41, and he withdrew from them about a stone's throw, and he knelt down and began to pray, saying this. Now, keep in mind, I'm painting a picture here that Luke is doing a beautiful job describing what is happening. It's almost like when you read this, you're going to sense what's going on in the life of Jesus. He said this, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Yet, not my will, but yours be done. Now an angel from heaven appeared to him and strengthened him. And being in agony, he was praying very fervently. When it says very and fervently, like that's the compound sense of urgency. Like Jesus is having this moment where he realizes what's coming, it's unavoidable. And I'm going to tell you that your eternal opportunities were set based on what's about to happen here. And Jesus senses it. And being in agony, he was praying very fervently, and his sweat became like drops of blood falling down upon the ground. Can you sense that Jesus realizes something is happening? The water, if you've ever watched water boil, it gets hot, and then it gets the little bubbles, and then pretty soon the bubbles start to come up. We sense that in the story of Jesus, the bubbles, like it's happening. The bubbles are starting to rise. Like everything that Jesus came to accomplish is right here, and it's about to happen, and he is physically distressed by what he's about to experience. Jesus is about to fulfill the ultimate act, not the word, the act of faithfulness on your behalf. This is why the simple path to Jesus is so important. Is like, hey, there's Jesus. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh. Jesus says that he produces faithfulness in those who follow him, but faith has to be chosen and acted upon, and that's exactly what Jesus is doing. He is saying, this is not how I would choose to go, but your will, not mine. And you just sense that if you were there, the weight or the magnitude. Verse 45, when he rose from prayer, he came to the disciples, and he found them sleeping. It says sleeping from sorrow. Maybe that's just a nice way of saying they were asleep. They're asleep. Here's Jesus having this moment. He's about to act in faithfulness on our behalf. Verse 46, and he said to them, why are you sleeping? Get up and pray that you may not enter into temptation. What is he saying? Hey. Do you sense maybe that something's happening here? My little boy, Jet, his dog today, we were running steers through the arena. We got a jackpot this week, and we're sorting through them. And little Donut does not understand the weight of what she's experiencing. And she gets away from Jet, and these steers are running through the arena. And it looked like the scene out of Lion King when the wildebeest are like running through the canyon. It's like, no, she's totally unaware. Happiest dog you've ever seen in your life. And just happy as she can be, not realizing that in her unawareness, she is in the middle of an intense situation. If this are 2020, Jesus is in the garden in 2020, let me tell you how this would go, because as people, we don't like to be acted upon. We don't like to be infringed upon. In fact, what we really like is for people to brag on what we are already doing. Tell us how good we're already doing. So imagine if this is 2020 and Jesus comes to the disciples. These are young men. These are young men, and their life is about to be turned upside down. Kind of already has been. And he comes to them and he goes, what are you doing? Why are you sleeping? Get up. And I would assume that the disciples' moms would have been like, well, Jesus, I don't know that you understand the stress that they're under. Are you getting the sense that I'm a little bit tweaked at 2020? I just don't think you understand, Jesus. Like, these kids are working really hard. I know why. You know why this is funny? I can hear you laughing, and I'm not even preaching this live in the room. I can hear you laughing. You know why? Because we see it everywhere. That when we are called to something more, the reaction is resistance. We don't want to be called to something more. We want to be congratulated for what we already are. Listen, nobody likes approval more than me. I love it. I love approval. But Jesus is saying it's time to move. It is time to choose. It is time to act right now. If your faith, if you're listening to me on a screen, if you're listening to me in person, if you're listening to me a year from now, this will remain true. That if your faith is primarily used to defend your current location or situation or belief, if you use your faith to defend yourself instead of being challenged to do more or to go further or to improve or to say no when you really want to say yes or to say yes when you really want to say no, if you use your faith to defend yourself, judge not lest you be judged. If you use your faith to defend yourself, it is safe to assume you've placed yourself at the center of your faith. That your faith is based on your comfort and your status, and Jesus gets to be a part of that. You'll use him anytime it comes up. Faithfulness means that God expects more out of you. We thought it was a fruit, right? I mean, isn't that what we say? The fruit is the result? Yeah, no, that's true. It's a fruit that he puts there, and then you have to choose and accept, and then act. If the idea is faithfulness, what God is challenging us to is that we are someone God can trust. There's a quote from George MacDonald that said, "It's more of a compliment to be trusted than loved." And I know that on its face, you hear it's better to be trusted than loved, and you go, what? I thought love was the ultimate. But if you think about it, there's people that I love that I don't trust. I can't think of one person that I trust that I don't love. What I mean by that is that it says more about the character of who we are when someone can trust us than if they're just forced to love us. And God is saying that one of the things you see in people when they place God at the center of their faith instead of themselves at the center of their faith, what you see is that they become people that God can trust. And when you say that, well, God does the work, God does all the work, what does it matter what I do? Because God does all the work, I get all the credit. That's a systematic view of Jesus. It's taking Jesus and you're placing him into a formula or a system. And you're saying that the system works for who? You. Jesus does all the work. What difference does it make? You are taking Jesus and you're putting him into a systematic view. Listen, I said it before. We're hearing the word systematic a lot. And can I just say real quick, without getting too political, the problem I have with blaming every problem on a broken system is that it removes choice from the people who are being victimized. What I mean by that is, if everything is a system, if everything is just the result of a system only, no personal accountability, it's all about a system. My problem is, then what you're telling somebody who wants a better life is, sorry, too bad, until the system changes, you're stuck. But it doesn't stop there. It also says that the oppressors and the awful people and the people who need to be held accountable, how could we say that they're guilty if they're just the product of a system? See, systematic makes it too general. It's not specific. And when Jesus engages you, not your neighbor, not the person sitting next to you, when God begins to engage you, our reaction is to take God and put him into a system where we are all herd immune from sin. The guy's going, no, it is not a herd immunity. I'm engaging you. I've got a plan for you. I've got things I want to do in your life. I've got works that I want to accomplish on this earth through your life, with your skills, with your voice. And our natural resistance to that is to say, well, but God does all the work. It's just fruits. He does all the work. It would be easier to make that argument if faithfulness was not listed in the fruits. That's not to say the system can't improve. I hope you hear me. It's not to say the system can't improve, but the system won't improve until you take responsibility for what you are responsible for. Let's not remove all accountability. Let's go back. I want to read it again. Verse 45, here's Jesus again. I'm going to read it again. When he rose from prayer, he came to the disciples and found them sleeping from sorrow. I'm not sure if I can make sense of that. Maybe they were just overwhelmed with everything that was going on. I think that's being kind of kind. I think they were just young guys and they were asleep. Why are you sleeping? Get up and pray that you may not enter into temptation. Don't you see it? The entire mission is about to change. The water's about to boil. Jesus is about to go to the cross. He says, I'm going to go to the cross and you're going to go to the lost. When was the last time you thought of that? That God wants to use you, not your pastor, not your church, not your system. God wants to use you to reach the lost. That your life, I'm going to look at the camera, your life. He wants to use your story to reach the lost. When was the last time you thought of that? See, if we think of it as just being systematic, then what we do really doesn't matter. What we are really doesn't matter. That's the problem I have right now, is that for all the craziness that we're seeing going on, it's all excused because, well, it doesn't matter because we've got an excuse for everything. And I think sometimes we think, well, what difference do my actions and my choices really make? God does all the work, I get all the credit, and it doesn't matter. And God's going, I'm trying to tell a story about myself through your life, and your life isn't telling a very good story right now. See what I mean about the American church? Oh, we're just all about grace. If that's true, then what you say you believe will drive you to act. I got a call this week from a lady. I won't name her name. She'll probably watch this and be embarrassed that I even told the story, but she called and she goes, God has been so good to me. This doesn't happen very often. For the record, this is not common. I was so impressed. She said, I feel so blessed, and I realize I need to be giving more. What can I do? And it was awesome. We listed some stuff, and she goes, I'll pick that one. See, that's not what we're taught. We're taught we go to God with a need, and then we act to our own benefit. She's going, I've been so blessed. I feel compelled. What she said that she believes is compelling. It is drawing her in love to act on what she says she believes. That kind of faith is amazing. Imagine if the church recognized everything God has done for us and was drawn or compelled into faith. Matthew 5:16, Jesus says, let your light shine before men that they may see your good intellect. Nope. Your good argument. No. Your good debate. No. Your good podcast. No. Your good sermon. No. Jesus says that when people see the works that you are drawn into based on what you say you believe, your faithfulness makes an impact and draws people in. He wants to use you. Jesus is telling his disciples, I'm going to go to the cross. You're going to go to the lost. And it's like, we're like, I love the first half. Let your light shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. How cool would it be if people are like, I don't understand the Bible, but I can't deny that Christians are just not human. They love when they're not supposed to love. They forgive when they're not supposed to forgive. They just go so far against human nature. And God says, that's what I'm saying. I need some faithful people who aren't tearing down the bars on Saturday night and pretending to be Christians on Sunday morning. Am I even allowed to say that? You're like, man, that sounds very Texas of you. It's not untrue. How many times are there people that will not walk through those doors because they see the stories that are being told in the lives of the people who claim to believe one thing, but their behavior tells a totally different story? We've gotten very intellectual about the church and about the Bible and about Jesus, and we've made everything systematic, and we've removed all personal accountability. It's like we've decided this. If it's meant to be, God will do it. And God's going, what? I called you. I want to do that in your life. Why are you sleeping? Why are you sleeping? Why in your behavior and in your actions do you look so different than what your mouth says that you believe? Jesus is going, wake up. Eyes up here. Wake up. What story are you telling about me? Because if we're not careful, we can come to church and we can ingest, oh, you're going to hate me, but I don't care because I'm preaching. You're not even here yet. Here's what I'm aware of. We become a people who we come in and we go, we believe. You know what we'd prefer? We want our worship experience to give us like some goosebumps. We just want to feel, will you forgive me for saying this? We just don't like video. Jesus is going, I'm going to the cross, you're going to the lost. We like it better this way. It's as though Jesus goes, wake up. And we go, Jesus, it's been really hard. We are so, the rule, they say the rule is preaching, if you've never heard this, you can shear the sheep once a year, but you only get to skin them once. Why are you sleeping? Why are you sleeping? This church does not exist to give you goosebumps. Is that okay? Do we get permission to say that? Like, we exist because we want to create a simple path to Jesus, not make you feel better so that you can defend where you are. The Bible is calling you to faithfulness, a sort of faithfulness that tells a very accurate story of Jesus. I can almost hear the clapping. I think if we're being honest, I wonder if we're being honest today, that if the church, maybe in the street, is screaming about personal accountability, like, hey, everybody's got to be responsible for their own actions. We need a better system, but the system is going to be propped up by personal accountability. We need personal accountability, and yet we are wagering our eternity on a systematic Christianity that requires nothing from us. No sacrifice, no giving, no nothing. We want more and more. What does it cost us? Nothing. We don't have to change. We don't have to try. We don't have to address our own sin issues. We just want to use the faith to defend where we are and never be compelled to discomfort. Can we say that? Can we say that God's going, I'm not interested in your comfort. I'm interested in you changing. We're waging our eternity on a faith that requires us to do nothing. I mean, accurately, if we believe that, why are we wasting our time? We're already fine. Just go and do whatever you want anyway. Don't change. Don't grow up. Don't give up anything. Don't sacrifice. Don't ever suffer. Just go do whatever you want. Seems risky, doesn't it? Philippians chapter 1, verse 6. It says, being confident of this, that he who began a good work, it's talking about God, he who began a good work, but the verse doesn't end there. It doesn't say that God is doing a miraculous work in the ether, out there in the universe. It's not what it's indicating. It says that God is beginning a work with his people. Nope, too general. There's a farmer one time. You're like, aren't you going to finish the verse? Yeah, I'm going to finish the verse. Farmer buys a piece of property and levels the ground, tills it up, puts in a water system, drills a well, fertilizes, plants seeds, then fertilizes. I know how it works. Shut up, all the farmers. Starts to grow, and it's growing in lines, and it's perfect, and it's ordered, and it's beautiful. And the guy comes by and goes, man, it's amazing what God has done with this place. And the farmer goes, you should have seen what he did with it when he had it on his own. Oh, that seems sacrilegious. Just hear me on this. Philippians 1:6 says, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you. That God is doing amazing things, that's true. But who's he doing them through? You. That he who began a good work in you will carry it on to the completion until the day of Christ. Imagine if your faith is based in the idea that you said some words one time, you meant it in the moment, and nothing changed. Okay, so what's the result of that? Oh, I get to dip on all the eternal punishment. That's it? No. I get to spend eternity with Jesus in heaven with a reward. And what did you do? I just said some words one time. Can you imagine trying to explain that to somebody that's never heard of Jesus? You're like, that's it. See, as people, we want to earn it. I get it. I get that we want to earn it. And I'm not saying that you earn your salvation. That is not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, how stupid are we that we think that, oh, we said some words sometime. God's going, no, I've started a good work and I will complete it on the day of Christ Jesus. But that doesn't mean that you're done. And that doesn't mean that you're just naturally so good already that God was lucky to have you, that he just ran by and put his stamp on you because he wouldn't be heaven without you. He's going, I did the work. I went to the cross. I'm sending you to the lost. Okay, what are you telling him? Well, I tell the lost, don't worry, Jesus, I got this. I'm telling the lost that you're not real. If you're thinking to yourself, Jordan, could you prepare a little bit more in advance next week? I get it, but it doesn't mean that it's not true. It doesn't mean that it's not true. The story that we're telling people is, you never have to change. It's a racket. It's a racket. You get to manipulate God, and he has to do what you say. And the world naturally would go, I don't think I want that faith. Isn't it interesting that maybe the world is a little bit more honorable about our faith sometimes than we even are? Thought this was fruits of the Spirit. Well, I've got some horses right now, and they do some cool stuff. I got a weird season where every horse I have right now I like. And when people come by, there was a natural ability that was already there, but here's the problem. You should have seen what God had done with them when he had them all to himself. God is using my life, and you're like, oh, this is about horses. It's not. It's just to paint a picture. I'm going to sit in the chair. I'm not just going to talk about the chair. I'm going to sit in the chair. That those horses are the result of my engagement in their life. But not every horse is a good horse. There are times where I have engaged. I have done the first thing. I've tried to create a fruit in their life, and they will not have it. They just won't. It's a fruit. It's a fruit. It's a result of my engagement, but they have to choose it, and they have to act upon it. I think if we're not careful, the American church is getting really dangerously close to that verse that says, I've girded you. I got a saddle on you. I had to sneak it past you because you didn't want it. But you're not in. You don't want what I've got for you. You don't want the changes. You just want me to come in and validate who you are so I don't hurt your feelings. Well, we don't want to hurt someone's feelings by telling them they're not good enough. I get it. But faithfulness says that as God begins to engage us at a personal level and we are confronted with things that make us uncomfortable, we don't get to work defending. We get to work engaging, going, God, you're going to have to help me through this. And God goes, that's why it's a fruit. You wouldn't have been able to do it without me. It's a fruit. It's a result that you choose and you act upon. And I wonder this. I wonder if we were to take the story of Jesus and try to demonstrate through our actions, where would we start? See, that's just real simple. The simplicity of that is that where would we start? You're already aware of the places in your life that don't accurately tell the story of Jesus. Faithfulness says that you begin to choose and you begin to act on them. Not so you can get more of a reward. Listen, there are churches that have got a lot of money this way. They're like, do you want God to bless you? And you're like, yeah, of course. Well, the level of your seed is the level of your harvest. Yeah, I get it. I'm saying, what if we started to recognize what God had already done and we begin to try to accurately, with our lives, with our actions, tell the story of Jesus, that he goes to the cross, he can send us to the lost. And if that means we use a screen, if that means we use online, if that means that we're live, we're in. We don't care. We're in. Why? Because he went to the cross. We're going to the lost. Let's pray. God, it is so much easier to preach a God who does everything, all of it for us. And that we just get to sit on the sidelines and reap the benefits. But God, that's too systematic. That's not individual. That's not personal. That's not relational. God, you have said that you have begun a good work in us, in me, in my life, in the life of everybody listening. That God, your desire is to engage us and create something in us and through us that enhances our life and makes the world a better place and that accurately tells the story of who you are. God, there is a personal choice, and the choice to act on what we say that we believe. Not just intellectually, casually stare at it and say that we believe it, but God, hold ourselves accountable, be responsible, be obedient. God, that we begin to choose to act on what it is that we say that we believe. Help us to begin to live out our faithfulness. I pray in Jesus' name, amen.